another Heads Up podcast, and as you might be able to see, it isn't just the two of us. We've extended our bubble, our virtual bubble, shall we say, Neil, and a very good morning to the founder and head honcho of Boys Get Paid, Mr. Luke Kimmies, joining us today, and welcome aboard, Luke.
Morning, fellas. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for getting me into your bubble.
Yeah.
And,
Neil, no trouble.
How are you surviving, Neil? Another week down of isolation. You're coping all right? Looks like you've been doing a bit of exercise there, keeping out of trouble on that bench.
I tell you what, you're in isolation when you got to take Voltaren because your back's so bloody sore from sitting down so much. So, but I've been for walks down the road, around the block a few times with the dogs, and down to the beach a couple of times, and doing the best you can to self-isolate. But for 6 meters. But 2 meters. But no, it's been so far so good. For a lot of us who work from home, you've got your routines, and you get along and do your things and stick to those routines, and that's how you get by, don't you? How about yourself?
Absolutely. Yeah. Pretty much the same. Try to create a new routine out of each day, and I must say, every day does seem to be getting easier in terms of that whole isolation because you've adapted. I guess human beings, as a rule, we do adapt after a time, and what seemed like an impossibility actually, with a bit of a change of a mindset, etc., they can become not so insurmountable. But on to more important things, and we were on a podcast last night with Luke, and we suggested that Randwick and the Aussie Racing, it's the only show in town tomorrow, and because of that, Luke, you've decided to get the Punters Club, the Boys Get Paid Punters Club, cranked up. Do you want to give us a bit of detail around that and how people can join and what's expected and how much you're going to make for everyone?
Yeah, how much are you going to make? That could be the hardest bit to answer. I've got all the other answers. Well, originally we were going to be going down to Sires Weekend, which is one of our favourite race meets when we first started getting into racing, and so we're putting on a bit of a birthday bash over a couple of days. It traditionally falls on my birthday. And obviously that was cancelled. So we had about 12 grand in the kitty from people that were prepaying into that, and that stopped as we started to get a bit shaky about what was going to happen. So I wanted to try and find ways to keep people engaged in the sport and have a bit of fun throughout this to take their mind off of some of the doom and gloom out there. And so we've relaunched it as such and then carried that 12 grand over, and going to focus on Aussie for the weekend, obviously, with no New Zealand racing. So there's a sign-up link in the BGP app, and I think we're going to close that off later on tonight so that we can make sure we've got everyone's money that pays in. And we're going to be having a crack at Sydney tomorrow and Melbourne as well, whilst they're racing, and potentially anywhere that we can find a winner in Australia. And I think at the moment we look like we might have, we'll hit 80 grand pretty comfortably by 5 o'clock tonight. And usually there's a flood of money in that last sort of final day, so I'd imagine that we might even push towards 100,000 if people start to really get in behind it later on this afternoon. So hopefully with your guys' help we can get everyone a winner, and I'd love to return everyone 3 times their cash. It's always sort of the goal, but it's never bloody easy, and it's quite tricky as well once you start betting with big numbers, like mentally trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to dice this 80 grand, and these tracks are a little bit off as well, so there's all those sorts of things to try and factor in. But I think everyone just loves being a part of the thrill of it. And if they get a return on top of it, even better.
Are you seeing new people to racing sort of getting involved when I guess a lot of the other entertainment options are locked down and shut and not available? Are you seeing people who aren't traditionally part of the Boys Get Paid Punters Club getting on board?
Yeah, probably a lot of the older demographic as well, of people that have kind of watched some of the BGP stuff from the sidelines and understood it or seen it happening. I think now they're like, okay, well, yeah, let's have a crack at this, because they're itching for something else to do inside racing as well. So I've got my mum in there. I saw her come in yesterday and she didn't even ask me any questions this time. So it's obviously getting easier for her. And I think some of these people that in the Karaka Million Punters Club for the first time through their kids or even on their own, they're getting back in, and it's we're getting new questions from people saying, hey, what is a Punters Club? How do we get involved? How will we track the bets? All those things that we think we've covered 100 times before, but it just shows you that people are looking for an entertainment option as such, and they're keen to be a part of it.
Yeah. And I suppose part of that is also with those new people coming on board, a bit of education maybe tomorrow. I know you're doing a live feed, so what is a fixed odds bet, what is a tote bet or quaddy
Yeah.
bet.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's something that we probably within the whole industry take for granted a little bit, where because we love the sport, we start to think that, we know all those things. And then we get critical of other industries for using jargon and things, but we forget that we can often be doing it ourselves or have a bit of a blind spot to helping people understand what they're doing so that they can enjoy it and go further with it. So, yeah, it will be definitely a big part of tomorrow as well.
Yeah.
So just to recap, to get the Boys Get Paid app, BGP app, you just go onto your Google Play or the Play Store, depending if you're Android or Apple, and download that. It's all free, and then it should be pretty self-explanatory once you've got the app on your phone to find out how you deposit, and then obviously that will keep you updated throughout the day with the bets as they roll in. They'll all be sent out on the app, so pretty easy, isn't it, Luke?
Yeah, we think so. We think it's nice and easy. There's always someone that proves me wrong, but there's always I work off a 95-5 model now, where 5% of the people you just have to have ultimate patience with because they will want confirmation or they'll want all the things that the other 95% of people don't necessarily need. But we try and get back to everybody as fast as we can to keep them happy.
So Neil,
I put some money in yesterday. It's straightforward. Got back up there with phone numbers if you need to get contact with them. So straightforward. Well done.
Well, we'll move on to a few questions we've got for you, Luke, if you don't mind. You're in the hot seat there. You said you haven't got anything else too much planned today, so we'll grab this time while we can because we know you're a busy man. How do you see Boys Get Paid being part of the revival of New Zealand racing once we get out of this current situation we're in? Where do you see BGP really coming to the party in that regard?
Well, I think we're about to enter into a very, very interesting time. And for me, what I'm focused on doing at the moment is basically keeping that audience engaged. As people are sitting at home with less things to do, their consumption is going to increase. So that's either going to work in our favour where we can do awesome things with Boys Get Paid and grow the audience, ready to dive into other projects once we get back to normality, or it actually has the risk of people decreasing their attention and Boys Get Paid and going into other areas. So we need to front foot it and basically not let a second happen. Otherwise, we run the risk of a decline in our engagement and our audience, which we've worked so hard to keep. So for me, it's about, and for Boys Get Paid, it's about keeping everybody engaged and having something that they want to be a part of so that when the big boys make the decisions at the top to tell us what racing is going to look like in the future, we can then build on top of that. So I think I've kind of given up I wouldn't say given up, but I've kind of stepped back from trying to trumpet change and we should be doing this, we should be doing that. I just sort of give my thoughts out freely now and try and play in the landscape that we're in. So because we don't know what that landscape looks like yet, I need to be prepared for whatever that is, that we can fit into it and basically excel in that environment. So that's kind of what's going on in my head at the moment. And then I've got to build ideas underneath that as to how we're going to be able to do that.
Just a question. You mentioned before that when the big boys tell us what to do. Can you hear me right? Okay. You mentioned before what the big boys are going to tell us what to do. Have they got in touch with you at all? You know, we've got close to 17,000 and probably more members over the next month or so who are out there watching this Facebook page, Boys Get Paid Facebook page, just wanting information and ideas. And have they consulted with you at all?
No, not over this time. I haven't heard from anybody as such. And look, I haven't even really thought about it, to be fair. I've kept an eye on sort of what they're doing in different angles and tried to keep the air out and how they're responding, but I haven't had any direct communication with any of the leaders as such.
Is there any one particular thing that if you were one of those big boys at the top making those decisions, one quick fix or one thing that you would change if you had such powers straight away?
Shit. Excuse me. My overall opinion about a lot of the businesses that are going to struggle through a time like this is we're actually now being found out about who didn't take the internet seriously enough. And I know that might sound, that's too simple, but realistically, a lot of businesses and people and whatnot didn't adapt. Let's say this podcast, for instance, if you guys didn't figure out how to use this technology, wouldn't be possible. So as a leader in a big organization, I would be saying, and I would have been saying this a long time ago, but I would be saying, okay, we need to accept that we didn't take technology and automation more serious. How can we lean further into that? The cost of resource is the biggest cost to most businesses in New Zealand. So how can we upskill them? If you can improve the rate that people read, because we read so much now, sitting at screens all day, you can increase efficiency, or you can decrease cost through automation and increasing people's efficiency and performance. So I would have been planning for how we can change a couple of those dials, because just small changes there can have a huge impact to bottom line. You know, people have banged on in this industry for a long time about how they've at a high end let the costs overrun the industry and etc. And we should have been audits into those. And now those people have probably got every right to put their hand up and say, see, we told you so, because we can't build enough margin into the product that we're selling to then cover those costs plus all the other overheads. We're going to run out of money. Yeah. So it's going to be, I don't think whatever we go into, the tab and racing in general, it's not going to look anything like it currently does. And we may need to put our hand up and say, hey, we don't have the right skill set of people to help decide how we can best go forward. And that's not me taking the mickey out of people that are currently there. It is just saying that in a time like this, I don't think there are any more experts, because we're into a once in a lifetime situation. Mm-hmm. So you need very strong leadership skills, fast decision making, things like that, rather than, oh, we'll just cut some costs over there, we'll sack those contractors, hopefully that buys us a bit more time, we'll get the subsidy, let's put the hand out to the government. That stuff's not going to work long term.
Yeah, dead right. It's so when you say getting the revenues up, it's going to be crucial to get that revenue going, isn't it, as early as possible. We're looking at July 1st for the first race meeting, if all goes to plan. You got any suggestions on how, through the TAB or the GOAT yourself, any ideas of how we could generate turnover quickly with small fields and maybe 5 or 6 races?
Well, they've suggested, obviously, with the horse population all spelling at the moment and then coming back into work, that you run races over shorter distances, so the fitness isn't quite such a key element there. So you're looking at 800-metre races potentially, but remembering July 1, there's not many tracks in New Zealand that would offer a reasonable surface at that time. So do you really want your not quite fit horse running 800 metres on a heavy 11 at Awapuni, for instance?
Yeah.
Is that a good way to get your horse back into racing shape? So there's a lot of challenges there. Yeah, I'm not paid enough to come up with the answers, luckily. But one thing that I've always struggled with this industry is that it's funded through the punter, and it isn't just with the move from tote betting to fixed odds betting now, and it's funded through punters' losses on the fixed odds, whereas previously with the tote, it was basically the TAB knew exactly how much income they'd generate through a pool of 100,000, takeout rate 15%, they get 15,000 revenue off that individual pool. Now with $100,000 of fixed odds bets, there might be no revenue. They could actually run at a loss. They could make 50,000. It's all variable. Is it the time to go completely against the flow and go back to tote betting only, and which would probably increase those pools again, but would lose some punters, but also move to an exchange type option where there is still a guaranteed margin for the middleman, the betting agency, without any risk and without huge costs of bookmakers, traders, and all the like. And so that can still accommodate your sports punters, which don't really work wouldn't work on a tote model, but just food for thought, putting it out there, whereas a model where you're guaranteed to be winning at every stage and not relying on people always losing, is that better for the industry? I don't know, but food for thought, I thought.
No, it's a good point. Even with the fixed odds stuff at the moment, they're relying on punters to lose, aren't they? That's basic premise of fixed odds betting. They want you to lose, like the corporate bookmakers in Australia. Which is wrong for a business. You want your best customers and your biggest customers to stay with you, don't you? All those customers who have been restricted or told to bugger off, where they've gone, either the Betfield, the corporates, or some other betting medium. So I think going back to parimutuel is definitely a good idea, even seeding it with, say, the win pool of, say, $10,000 to start with, and gradually take that $10,000 out as the pool increases. I don't know. There's better people than me with mathematical minds to be able to work those sort of things out. But I've heard that idea before, and I thought maybe it's not a bad idea. Look,
Yeah, I was just going to say, one thing that I'm keeping an eye on that I think is really, really interesting is Lotto. Like, in a time like this, they've effectively been made to go 100% digital. And I'm going to guess that this isn't going to have a big impact on Lotto, nor is it going to have a big impact on their turnover. And I reckon that in the next 2 years, we'll see them go to a model where they say, actually, this has made us decide we don't want to do retail at all.
Yeah.
And we didn't need to. We were just worried about leaning further into technology or accepting that change and pissing off some people. But so I wonder if we can look at Lotto and try and find a couple of answers around some quick wins, because people are still going to entertain themselves and gamble in a recession based on previous data. So do we need to just introduce some simple betting options that are going to get people betting or engaged to then, instead of them going, right, I might not have a bet today because I'm a bit tight for money and I'm a bit worried about the stuff. You get them a simple kind of lead in, and then they're like, I am going to spend the day backing another few runners, that sort of thing. So like an actual business will try and upsell, and so trying to create a bit of a runway for people to go on the other side of this to get them betting in general, but then the tab have to figure out what those products are, and how they can't get exploited on that so that they can keep the margin there and profit. And I think your point about exchange betting, I think that when we see these bigger businesses, what they're doing in terms of Uber Eats and things, we are going to that exchange model, and that user is at the front of the experience. So the traditional model of betting against a bookmaker, I don't think it's going to hold up for forever. Or for probably not that much longer. Yeah, so I think exchange betting is going to be something that has to be taken very, very seriously.
The industry has always based itself on tradition and the like, and I think we're going to have to change a whole lot of traditions with this disruption that we're currently going through. And you're right, Luke. Maybe the retail model, which I'm sure costs the TAB a lot of money, and the pubs and clubs, while people think it's a social thing to do, they'll have a punt while they're having a drink or with some mates after work. But the cost of that versus the return, that would be an interesting exercise. And maybe some hard calls will have to be made. They've already, at this point in time, got rid of trackside radio. So you go from a radio station setup, and a lot of other radio stations, as we've already mentioned, or have seen recently, have fallen over as well, and other media outlets, the print media, are struggling. So the whole media way racing is consumed will change as well. And maybe this is the time to actually make some of those giant steps that no one's been prepared to really break from tradition in the past, and this is the time to do it.
I know someone who works in a retail outlet selling Lotto, and the owner is always moaning about covering his cost of the wages for that person to be virtually full time on the Lotto counter. So with these people, once this is over, buying and working from home, I think you're right, Luke, that we could see the end of quite a few of those outlets.
Yeah, I think here's one for you, Goat. Traditionally, businesses that rely on traditionally don't do very well.
You've always been one for a good one-liner, Lukey.
I reckon I could refine that one, but yeah, look, I think this isn't just one of those things that's happened and it's oh shit, no one saw it coming. I mean, no one did see it coming, but I think this will actually change society and the way that we do a number of things, and we'll look back at it and go, wow, that was really the catalyst for us to do things a lot differently, not just this is going to come and go. Like I think that I think I saw Westpac predicting that 200,000 people will lose their jobs. I think it'll be a lot more than that. I don't want that to be the case. I'm just saying that I can see this being a lot worse than probably what we think, because I think at the moment we're looking at this 4-week bubble going, we just need to get through this 4 weeks, then we can figure out what life looks like on the other side. But all of the dealings I'm having with my business clients is don't get sucked into that, because this is going to have a lot bigger impact than just 4 weeks. So don't look for the positivity on the other side. So I know that if we then go into a further time period where people can't afford to pay their staff, they're just going to have to make ruthless decisions, and people are going to lose their jobs across every single industry. And it's not like we can just go, cool, we've actually fixed the virus now, it's all good, everyone can get back out there, and you just turn it back on. It just doesn't work like that. So we're in for a very, very rough ride.
Look at teachers just last night, cutting nearly all the employees' salaries, wages by 70%.
Yeah.
Cases they're going to be on the bread line, and no choice to take it or the dole. So.
Yeah, what I do worry about is what's the flow-on effect for race clubs in terms of attracting sponsorship, in terms of keeping catering companies employed, all of those sorts of things, like the flow-on right through, and then to people having discretionary money to race a horse, to bet, to go and have 10 beers at the track, rather than I might just actually sit home with 10. I've only been given an allowance of $50. I'm going to buy a box of beers and spend the other 30 on the punt, versus going and buying 5 beers at the race club for that same $50, things like that. So that's where I think everyone's going to have to get a lot smarter and very, very quickly and think about this in a longer time term, rather than just, we just got to get through this and we'll see how we look on the other side of it.
And
I think people have learned
an article, haven't you, about those line of thinking, and I'll put a link down below this video so people can have a read of that as well. Really interesting reading. So
well, I drafted up a little pieces for friends and for the BGP community and stuff about just things to think about if finances do get tough, because I think we're sort of undereducated in New Zealand around, especially us younger people, and realistically, I'm 32 now, and this was our first real hiding. First hiding in KiwiSaver, first hiding on the stock market, first time our mates are going to lose jobs, and we're like, shit, I don't know what to say to them. I don't know, how do I lift them up? And we're not taught how to deal with those sorts of things as well. So I think the effects of that are quite bad. So when I started to see this happen, I sort of made a commitment that I want the people that are in the Boys Get Paid community to come out the other side of this in a better position had they not been a part of the community. So that's kind of how I've faced it, or wanted to try and figure out how I can add some value, not just in terms of betting and having a bit of fun and BGP is exciting and whatnot. It's more about, okay, this is a genuine community. How can we make people's lives better and give them some skills and knowledge to arm them with during a shitty time like this?
No, but lucky to have someone like you leading BGP with the skill set you've got and the care you've got for people. So long term, I think it's all looking good, as best as we can do. Hopefully with your guidance, we can all get through this.
Hope so, mate. I hope so. But yeah, I think people should just prepare for a bit of a rocky road, but embrace it, because there'll be some awesome stuff that will come out of this, and people will be a lot stronger for the entire experience.
Shall we change tack slightly, gentlemen, and turn our focus to Randwick for tomorrow's day one of the championships? Just bringing up here, we'll have a look at. We kind of do a couple of races of a preview, Luke, just for your information. So we'll bring up the Australian Derby, race 7 on the card tomorrow. Castelvecchio, the horse that finished runner-up in the Cox Plate, is your $2.50 favourite, with everyone's favourite J-Mac on board. Not a hell of a lot of depth in this Derby field, to be fair. You've got the New Zealand Derby winner Sherwood Forest at 12s, Shadow Hero at 4s. Neil, you've probably cast your eye over this field. Early thoughts, acknowledging that track conditions could make things a bit different come race time.
Definitely, it's a soft 6 or 6, depends on what country you're in. It was downgraded from a soft 5 from yesterday, so with 10 to 25 millimetres of rain forecast today, and just a decent day tomorrow, it's going to be getting close to a heavy heavy 8, it was spot 7. So you want a horse that can handle the track, and I think there's 3 realistic chances. Castelvecchio, Shadow Hero would like a better than sort of soft 7 track, and Quick Think if it does rain, he really does come into it. I thought Castelvecchio, his win the last time on the Rosehill Guineas, and gee, he was only beaten by a length and a bit by Lee Grisseau in the Cox Plate. Te Akau Shark was third. And he wasn't tiring in that Cox Plate. It's just outstanding form to me, and I think if a half-decent track is on tomorrow, he does look a justified favourite. But I have to wait and see how that track plays out early on. What do you think, Luke?
Yeah, I was having a look at this yesterday and trying to toss up whether Shadow Hero should be $4 and see it was actually drifting in the market yesterday. And I went back and watched a couple of the replays. I just think got a little bit too far back last start and got niggled at, and probably got found out a little bit and couldn't quite pick them all up. So I thought that 4th was a bit better based on earlier run, than what it suggests. But I then went back and watched the Derby, which we were at over there, and I think it might have been favourite on that day and sort of run 5th. It did pick up a number of runners on that day, but I just wonder if it's a little bit too wet, if it won't get through the ground as well. So, yeah, I think I'm going to take your guidance on this one and stick with J-Mac. And I think the sire's Done Deal, right, which J-Mac won on a number of years ago.
Yep.
Castelvecchio.
2013, Done Deal, and Done Deal just waltzed it. And, you know, he's down on the post, and I think J-Mac is a good engagement. He'll get out and try and get handy like he's been doing recently. And, if the rain does really make it a really heavy track, that Quick Thinker has to come into it. Warning, I don't like, because he hung there last start, and I think he's better the other way round, so I think he could be safely covered. So maybe wait and see. Just those first 2 or 3 races, we'll get a good gauge of how wet that track is, eh?
Moving on to race 9, the Doncaster, and heading the field is the Kiwi Hope Melody Bell, currently $7 on the New Zealand TAB fixed odds prices. Been passed, though, in favouritism stakes right down the bottom by number 19, Brandenburg, for expat Kiwi John Sargent and Glenn Boss at $6.50. We'll start with you, Luke, on this one. You're a huge Melody Bell fan. You've travelled all the way to Melbourne to watch your race last start, although you didn't actually get to watch your race, but you got to enjoy the surroundings at the casino there with a lot of the other connections. You got a bit of an inside to the Te Akau camp. Any inside information leading into this Saturday?
Oh, look, I think it's, like everybody knows, it's just going to be, can she carry that weight and weight against her, which I know Neil will have some thoughts on, which I was interested to hear. But when I was doing some study for the Punters Club, I really didn't focus on this race because I just found it so hard. Like, there's a few that I do like in here, and one's even colding at 14s and $4.20. He's been pretty disappointing, but I know that they've not been too impressed with him going around the last couple of starts in Melbourne. So back to Sydney, we could see a different horse, and he won't mind a bit of chop out of the ground. And then, of course, one of my favourites further down the book, and Star of the Seas, is at huge money. I think if that won last start, then we wouldn't be getting 31s, but just didn't really put on a bloody hard horse to follow, that's for sure. So, yeah, I found this race really, really tough to have a crack at, but I usually just have if they offer anything around $2 plus for Melody Bell to place, I think that's usually a pretty safe bet. So I'd still expect her to be very competitive and in that top 4. It's a shame that the TAB aren't doing the top 4 promotion anymore, because I think she would have been a bloody good bet at $2.50 to run top 4.
That Star of the Seas horse that's given you more heartache than most of your girlfriends, mate.
Oh, double, mate. Double.
Yeah, two at the same time, Luke. That's why.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to take sometimes, but, you know, it's a good thing about punting. It teaches you a lot about resilience, right? So that
Absolutely.
Ladies on the back of that.
Yeah.
Neil?
Yeah, as you mentioned, I have a rating before each race, or most races now, of a confidence level. I rated this a 1 out of 5, and if it could go lower to 0.1 out of 5, I'd go 0.1 out of 5, and it's that kind of race. But I had Melody Bell on top originally, but like you said, the weight just doesn't make her much value to me with so many live chances. And then I've gone for Number 12, Imaging. Won really well last start, second up from the Waller stable. And he's just got an action of a really good wet track horse. Third up, I think he's a good each way, but at what, $13 now, but gee, there's 5 or 6 live chances.
I did the Imaging was the pick of Chris Waller's runners earlier in the week, so it might be onto something, Neil.
You were a nice weight. It'll go forward and from the UK, and it's got a good high knee action, comes down, and that's what you want when you've got a hard slog. Be on the pace, and it'll take a tough horse to get past it. But James Mack on. I think it's Karamika. I'm not too sure.
Hopefully by then, gentlemen, the punters club's flying at that stage, so we can maybe box up 12 in the first 4 and try and crack something like that, so we can go have a wide spread. You never know how we'll be travelling by then. But there's a couple of the races previewed for Randwick. Of course, there's 8 others on that card, and we're sifting through the other meetings as well. Doomben, Morphettville, Caulfield, to try and find some winners for the punters club. But you'll have a full preview up on your site, Neil, this afternoon, will you?
Yeah, I've got an early preview up now of about 5 or 6 races there. I'll be finishing off those this afternoon and after this, and having a good look at Caulfield too. And yeah, that's back to a soft 7. So they've had a bit of rain there, but good punting. There's actually one thing we have to cover off too was last week's winner. We had 5 correct entries for that question, which was?
The question last week was, who was the batsman at the other end when Grant Elliott hit that winning 6 in the semi-final of the 2015 Cricket World Cup? The answer, Daniel Vettori, and 5 people got that. We'll choose number... You choose a number, Luke, between 1 and 5.
Steve L. He won last week too, so he'll be happy.
Yeah.
But that's true enough.
Back to back. Now, I've got a question for this week, Neil.
Yep. What is it?
Okay, I've just come up with one. Luke's not allowed to answer this one. Name the horse that the Boys Get Paid Punters Club plonked $74,000 on in 2019 Karaka Million 3-year-old race and come unstuck. Probably one of the, it's definitely the single biggest losing bet our punters club have had. Sorry to remind you of that, Luke, but I just thought it was a good question. We do have to admit at times there are losses, although it didn't turn out to be a losing day. But this one bet, the punters club for Boys Get Paid in 2019 Karaka Million, had $74,000 to win on a horse, and I'll give you a clue, it ran 3rd.
I still got entries. If you want, I can give you the proof. Yeah, I carry it around to report. Should have been a place.
You got a frame, have you, or no?
No, it just sits in my backpack that I carry around. I just treat it as a bit of a reminder to never make that mistake again. So,
it was James Mack, the winner, wasn't it, in that race?
Yes.
He did.
Yeah, I remember. Now, I think on Tuesday having another podcast, aren't you, with of notable racing identities?
Yeah, we're going to do. I sat down with Louis. Obviously, Louis lost his job with Radio Sport, and I said to him, let's over this next 4 weeks plus, let's do some weekly interviews. We just sit down with some characters of racing and just talk over Zoom and ask them about what they like about racing, how they're involved, and just get some stories out of people. So we've got Brendan McCullum first up on Tuesday, which has been pretty well received by the audience so far, and we'll continue to push that Tuesday. So we should have a few tuning in. We made a list of about 20 names of different people that we thought could be good to get on, and just people outside of who we usually speak to, and just hear their story in racing. And I said to Louis, I remember when I was quite early into racing, I would tape all of Steve Davis's Off the Tracks, and I'd go home and watch them at lunchtime in my work hour, and really enjoyed it. So I thought, well, it's probably, for those that are right into racing, it's probably something we can recreate and just do it in a different format. So that's been the idea behind that.
Yeah.
I think what that does too is most sports have heroes, your Jonah Lomus, your Christian Cullens, your Val Adams, and these are pin-up people, and we need to get more sort of pin-up heroes of racing, and people do cross sports like BMAC, legendary cricketer, but loves his racing, and people actually see, oh, here's a guy that loves cricket, but he loves racing probably just as much, if not more. And you might get some people crossing over code, so to speak, to see, well, why does this guy love racing so much? What's so cool about it? And you pick up a new audience.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got an early question for him too. Smithy on TV admitting one day he was playing cricket and the first leg from Trentham was on. So he accidentally on purpose got out just before the first leg was run. I wonder if Brendan's ever been fallen for that.
Yeah. There's been a couple of similar questions, so I think we'll try and pose them some of those questions that other people potentially can't always ask them. So we'll see what we can get out of them.
Sure. That would be cool. No, looking forward to that. And what sort of thing would you like to sort of finish on? You know, giving punters advice about the times ahead and maybe looking up on themselves.
Yeah, I think one thing that I've done last year, or over this last 2 years actually, and it's been really good for me, is taken my betting a bit more seriously, where I've tracked like my deposits, tracked my withdrawals, so that I've been able to keep a running balance of how I'm going for the year, and then just treat it when I have those bad runs as a bit of a longer term. Like I can identify I'm in a slump, but then I can make it all back as such. Not that I look at it like that, but when you do, you kind of go, right, well, that actually balances out 20 bad days or those down times, and that's what you have to remind yourself so that you can kind of enjoy it longer term. And actually, one of the projects that I've sort of got on the boil, and I've got a phone call tomorrow through to America at 6:45 in the morning on a Saturday, is around whether we do a giant PDF book. And so my idea around that would be to get interviewed by these guys that write the book, so potentially us three and a couple of others, and just do a profile on each of, okay, here's how you can make your punting better and smarter and enjoy it longer term, those sorts of things, and try and get all of that thinking that's up here out of a few of us, and then put it into a giant PDF that people can download and read. So similar to what we did with the Punters Clinic in video format, but actually have it written up as a book. So I think what the GOAT said with the Punters Clinic is that if you can win a bit more often or avoid some of those losses, and it might have even been you as well, Neil, like you can enjoy the sport longer, and that's what's going to keep you in it, and it's going to make it easier to explain to your partner why you like it and why it's not that bad that you lost $100 this weekend and things like that. So, I think we've probably got a bit of a responsibility of trying to help out with that. So that's what the project I've got on the board.
100%, because I'll tell you what, I've been down this road before where you think, okay, it looks quite easy to make money full time. Yeah. People now are going to be thinking, shit, I'm going to be out of a job for the next 6 months. I can't get work. I've got 5 or 10 grand stuck away somewhere that I should be able to use. I should be using for something else, but I'll give this a crack. I'll tell you what, just don't do it unless you have the skills to do it. And the only way you're going to learn that is by starting small and learning like you've done. You want to get serious, so you track your betting and you find out what you're good at. And just don't make the mistake of committing a whole lot of money to something that you aren't really skilled at. 100%, don't do it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think even for the share market at the moment, people are saying, well, this is the time that you get in because it's in the down and whatnot. But if you've never been a share market investor, then why all of a sudden you're going to be, so you just have to be a bit smarter in time. Use a time like this to upskill yourself as well. People have got a lot more spare time at home and they're cutting out the commute. So try and identify a couple of those areas where you've saved time and then reinvest them back into yourself by doing some learning in some space. So it might be, if you do really like your punting, to learn how you can make your $100 go a bit further, or it might just be upskilling at the thing you do for your job.
Yep, 100%. We touched on that last week, actually, Luke, with a myriad of articles within the Practical Punting Monthly archives, and I've been reading through some of those. And we're pretty simple beings, human beings, and we forget things very quickly, and we think we know everything, and you do need to just remind yourself and go back to ground zero almost, and just build yourself up again on the basics. Just one final bit of learning, shall we say. an email I got today, and I thought I'd just read out a couple of paragraphs because I think it sums up a bit of what we've talked about here, and I guess also what you're trying to achieve, Luke. In times like these, the world needs people to stand up and be counted. In a nutshell, we need leadership, people who have the capacity to inspire the rest of us to take responsibility for ourselves and therefore think about the value we add to others. At the end of the day, the true power of leadership is influence. It's not about controlling people or manipulating our position or authority. It's about giving people reason to believe they can improve their life as well as the lives of others.
Yeah. Bloody beautiful.
Yeah, that last bit's important too, the lives of others too. You know, your partners and your family have got to come right up there along with you now. Yeah.
And just society as a whole. And you think back, if someone said to you at Christmas time or New Year's Eve, in 3 months' time, you're going to be locked in your house basically for at least a month, and you're not allowed, you won't be going to work, you won't be doing this, you won't be doing that. People go, well, no, we'll do that. We'll still do it. You can't tell me what to do. I'm my own being. I'll do what I want to do. It's interesting how society can adapt in times of real need to being a collective and remove the individual and become more of a team. And I think people deep down know they need each other, and it's just times like this where it does come out. So let's hope from out of all of this, a lot of good, I know, will come out of it, and hopefully we'll continue to treat each other maybe a bit differently to when we before this happened.
Sound wisdom.
And go bobbing.
Go bobbing. We got 20,000 on race 3 at Randwick.
Yeah, and it's good that TAB let you get on at the price too. So and all the money is going to be paid back, hopefully, if it can be through people's TAB accounts. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So they've been really helpful, and that makes my life a lot easier. If I had to refund 500 people via their bank account, it does make it a massive task. I'll just check how many we've got. I've got a live spreadsheet in front of me. 460 people involved at this stage. I can see another, maybe that looks about $2,500. So we look like we're at about 72,500.
Right. And, no, because that money gets paid out through people's TAB accounts. So most of them are all bettered up. And it's great for the industry, so that's a great thing to do. So,
I think the stat is that about 60% of the people end up betting the money, so 40% take it out roughly based on another time that we did it. So,
that's good stat. Yeah. Oh well, good luck to you and me and the goat tomorrow. We're going to need it, I think. Slow tracks, but get bobbing off to a good start. We're in.
We just don't want another drop whip, do we, go?
Oh, gee. Intrigue race 1 at Ellerslie. Yeah, we have to laugh about it now, but that's racing, isn't it? But a bit painful for a $116,000 result, but that's the way it goes. Hey, just on behalf of Neil and myself, Luke, great to have you on board.
Yeah.
Your wisdom, your foresight, your vision, and your passion for this industry is second to none. And really great that you could be part of the Heads Up podcast. And for people, I guess to be fair to say, no disrespect, but this is probably generally an older audience, but hopefully you've seen an insight into Boys Get Paid. It isn't a bunch of larrikins just getting on the chop and betting up large for the sake of it. There's a lot more depth to the community and a lot more, just a whole lot of good things going on.
Thanks very much.
Thanks. Thanks for having me, boys. And I'd just say that, I've actually, over this last 18 months, it really has, I've received like a lot of respect from that end of the industry and that demographic, and that's been pretty cool for me, going places and getting stopped and asking, can I help them with this, or can I suggest this to the tab, and me thinking, that we've got this young audience, and then getting stopped by ladies in the street and stuff, and I'm thinking, wow, they're listening. And so to have that respect is something that means a lot to me, and I know I use that as a bit of a yardstick that I'm actually doing things that matter, and I want to continue to do that. And I think, like we touched on before, here to serve people, and this is where I've been placed to do it as such. So I'm going to lean into that as much as I can. And I think long before BGP happened, I thought I was potentially the CEO of New Zealand Racing, or maybe New Zealand Rugby League, which were my two big passions. So I don't know where I'll end up, but I want to do what I'm doing at the moment, and that's lead through servant leadership. So that's, do a lot of the doing as well, and then help people to get in behind and do those sorts of things that are going to add to it, and then also go off on their journey and lead other people as well. So there's a lot more to come.
I certainly appreciate it, Luke, and wish you all the best. Right behind you. Okay, everyone. See you next time.